Guys, my name is Sean. I'm a houseplant enthusiast from Jakarta, Indonesia. Welcome to today's video where we're going to be sharing the care and propagation of this really beautiful, gorgeous, and rare fern called the Nephrolepis exaltata suzi wong. I hope I said that correctly. I actually could not find out where this plant came from. There's very little known about this plant, although a few sellers do carry them. And they're pretty easy to propagate, as we will see later. They're a little bit slow in the beginning, but once they have established, they are unstoppable. They become crazy. This one is grown in a pot with a face on it. This is so cute. So it's got like face and hair. So the thing about this plant is that they actually like really bright indirect light with a little bit of direct sunlight. They really appreciate that. And never ever let the potting mix dry out. However, the problem with this plant is that if it gets rained on, the foliage, I have an example here. I actually sprayed water on this right before. Look at how limp that is. It's so sad. And this is probably not good for the plant because it can rot very easily when you allow them to be limp like this. So you gotta really shake out the water and let it grow, like let it get dry sort of around the fronds where it can be a little bit more upright. So good airflow is a must for this plant. Remember, when you water this plant, if you can, try to bottom water it or aim your hose or whatever at the potting mix and not the fronds. However, I keep mine in the rain, so I just leave them out to defend on their own, and they're doing all right. But if you look at the underside, there's so many browning here. They're just not very happy if it gets heavily watered on the fronds. And you want to fertilize this the same with other houseplants. I do notice that they respond quite well to light fertilizing. I don't have any pest issues with these guys before. This is a pretty pest resistant fern. Although maybe some mealybugs may live in the roots, I don't see any right here. I may have seen it before in some of my other, because I've propagated so many of these, but mealybugs are everywhere, you guys. They don't select the species of plants. So if you neglect your potting mix, you don't really treat it with pests long enough, mealybugs are gonna live there. But this plant actually, because I keep the media pretty wet all day long, I don't let it dry out at all. I just water this every day, and if it's a sunny day, I water it twice a day. Mealybugs don't really stand a chance in here because they will not be happy with being in this kind of wet conditions. And the thing about these guys is that you do want to prune them very often because they put out a lot of these dead fronds. Let me see over here. That, you know, if you don't cut it off, it's just going to be in the way of new growth, because as you can see, the new growth can really entangle into each other. So this is one of those plants where this is actually a decent size. If I let it get any bigger than this, it's going to get in trouble. It's going to suffocate each other. So I'm going to be propagating this today by root division. There's another way to propagate this plant, and that is, I don't know if you see here, as with most other ferns, they put out these, I don't know what you call these, aerial roots or whatever. And you just take a few strands of this and you tuck it into, let me see if I have an example here. So you fill this with potting mix, and then you just tuck some of those, I don't know, aerial roots, whatever you call it, into the next pot over. And just water this regularly. New fronds will emerge from the new pot, and that's when you can cut it off to separate them. I may do that later, but we'll see. But for sure, the fastest way to propagate them is by root division, so we're gonna get into that. Okay, so I'm actually only going to be doing one example for you because otherwise the video will be too long. So you want to get your pot, fill it in with general purpose potting mix, and then you want to take out the fern. Actually, this fern is all right. If you let it grow out even more than this, like, it can get super crazy bushy and out of control. So if that happens, your fern will have a lot of drying out fronds very quickly because they suffocate each other. That's not a pretty good look, and you will have to prune it so often, and then it will finally probably die. So you always have to propagate this fern. This is a very attention-seeking fern, basically. So you want to take this fern out of the pot, and then I just go violently. I just split it like that. If I'm really greedy, I can even take something as small as this. As you can see here, it's got its own root system. It's got a baby frond coming out along the way. So this will actually be fine. There, just plant it and you're done. This is how you divide many other ferns. Pretty much the same way. And then just never let this dry out, of course. And just wait a few months. This is quite slow to propagate, but then as it becomes much more juvenile form, it will push out growth really quickly. Another way that you propagate fern would obviously be from spores propagations. Although I don't know how you would harvest a spore from this guy. Look at it, how fine and wispy this is. So this can be it's actually, this can be its own plant because I can see that this is actually one clump. I don't know if you can see here, this is exactly one clump. So maybe I don't want to be so greedy, because if I keep this clump as it is, it will grow pretty fast. But of course I want to take off all these dead roots, or I can propagate it to the next pot over. Hang on, let me see what am I going to do with this. Okay, so I want to separate these strands of, I don't know what you call these, you guys, but runners, maybe that's a cool word to call them, runners. So I want to separate them off to one side. These are all the runners. And then I'm going to tuck it to the next pot over. I'm going to pot this up here. I'm making such a mess. I love working with ferns because they're so easy and so rewarding. And I love watching the new fronds emerge from the middle. So they unroll like that. Love watching that. It makes my day. Okay, see those, what do you call this? Runners or aerial roots that are coming off the side? I'm gonna bury it in the next pot over. Just like that. And just put potting mix over it. So these two pots are gonna be connected to each other. Of course, I hope I don't yank it out and then kind of have an accident going on. But that's happened before, so I'm not surprised. So you can see these are now conjoined. So one is going into the other pot. So let's see what happens in a few months' time. In my experience, this works with my Boston ferns. So yeah, so I'm gonna finish up with the rest of these. I'm gonna keep breaking them up and take you another example. For this one, as you can see here, there are two, let me see if there's something. So as you can see here, this is actually entangled. Oh my god, a spider on my neck, but my hands are dirty, ew. Okay, never mind, now my neck's dirty. Anyways, so these are two fronds. As you can see, they can really tangle into each other. And then when you break them apart, you actually injure them, and then you have some browning happening. Totally wild. I love it. I love this plant. Just break it off into two. So now you've got two clumps here. It can actually do even more. Hang on. There's one little baby one here on its own, so this may become its own plant. Yeah, I'm going to be very greedy with this guy. I'm going to be propagating quite a lot of it, including the little babies. So yeah, I will see you later. I'll show you how many pots I end up with. Guys, so I unpotted this big pot, and look at how dry the potting mix is. I just watered it this morning. I watered them deeply every day, and by the end of the day, it's already bone dry. And it's a hot day out today, don't get me wrong, but this is a very, very thirsty plant. Imagine if you don't water it the next day, it's gonna die. So do not miss watering on these guys. It's got very fine roots too that cannot be dried out. My camera's not focusing for some reason. Yeah, it's got very fine roots that will dry out easily if you're on top of them. So I'm done potting these up. I ended up with 20 pots. So that's quite a lot. So I started with 3 pots. And some of them I kept pretty large, like this is one of the parent plants. I kept a huge clump here. It does look better now than before. Remember how crazy everything was before? Of course, I'm gonna let this grow out a bit more because this is a little bit sparse. But with this plant, you really do need to keep propagating it, otherwise it gets too unruly. And this is a good plant to share with your friends and family, you guys. It's so beautiful. So I'll be waiting for a few months, and then I'll give you guys an update to see how everyone's doing. Bye. So we are 2 months later. I actually wanted to show you this plant. This is not what we propagated, but you can see how bushy this plant is. So for this particular species, you do need to prune often. You need to take some of these dried fronds off with the scissors and just clean it off. Like some of these roots, you gotta take them out because they kind of get tangled into each other. Look at that. And then they will crisp up if they suffocate each other. So this is one of their downside. And the good thing is that this is actually ready for propagation. So this is good for just dividing up. And also another thing is that they do collect a lot of dead leaves. So this is quite a bit of a effort to maintain outdoors at least. They do really well indoors, by the way. These guys just cannot be dried out, but they do really beautifully indoors. And they do grow relatively fast. So you just gotta keep pruning them and caring for them, but very cute nonetheless, very satisfying. Now let's look at those babies that we propagated. All right, so everybody lives here and they get a little bit of morning direct, like right up there, just like a slither of morning direct. Everybody's so bushy now. Oh my goodness. I haven't checked this area often, but I do know that I have to remove leaves out of here very, very often and actually kind of space them apart, but then the gardener keeps squishing them together again. And this is not good because they see what's happening there. They're gonna catch onto each other. They're gonna grow into each other. But yeah, as you can see, this has grown rather big. This has gone actually a little bit out of control. I do need to prune this babies, and I'm going to be having these up on sale at some point. But before that, yeah, of course I gotta clean this up. So yeah, it's my duty. Or you know what, all these limping ones I may actually just cut out and focus on the little ones that are growing here and the new ones, because some of them are not looking so fresh. So yeah, these guys actually do need care, and this is sort of not the ideal condition. They don't want to be clumped together like this. Yeah, so I guess that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you guys have the chance to pick up one of these because they're so cute, so fluffy. I'm at botanist on Instagram. If you want to DM me on any questions regarding plant care and propagations, I'll try my best to get back to you. Meanwhile, do take care and stay safe. I will see you in the next video. Bye.